Yo, what's going on everybody? This is Brendan back again with another video, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about my Lumix Lx100 Mark II. This is about a 4-year-old camera, which I just bought about a month ago. When I bought this camera, I was looking for the perfect street photography camera, as I'm getting more and more into street photography and doing it all the time. And if you are someone who's active on this channel and you've watched a lot of my recent videos, you've seen my street photography journey. You've also seen that I've been trying to find something that's small and portable that I can use as an everyday carry camera. The camera I'm shooting on now, my workhorse camera, is the Panasonic S1H. It's a full frame beast. It weighs like 3 pounds and it's really heavy and big, and you can't bring it with you everywhere you go, even though the photos out of it are gorgeous. So at first I was getting into film photography, so shooting on my 35mm film Canon 8U1, awesome camera, smaller and more portable than my full frame S1H, and this still does full frame photos. Obviously though, in film, it is a little bit more portable, but still a little large for an everyday carry kind of a camera. You have to think a little bit harder about it when you're bringing this with you everywhere you go. So from there, I got, and I did a video on this camera, the Rollei 35. This is a super portable camera that, especially in the winter when you're wearing coats, you can fit it in a coat pocket really easily. It has a collapsible fixed lens, so it makes it a really small form factor that you can take with you everywhere you go. However, after a couple months of shooting on film, it really started burning a hole through my wallet. So I was like, okay, I was waiting for about 3 months to purchase a Fuji X-E4, and to me that was like the perfect camera for the type of street photography that I do. But after 3 months of waiting and it being discontinued on B&H and Sammy's Camera and all the other stores, I decided to look at other options, and that's when I found this. A 4-year-old camera, by no means brand new. I could have gone with something like a Fujifilm X-E2 or an X-E3 instead of the X-E4, but those cameras are also as old as this one, but they're selling for the price of a brand new X-E4. They haven't gone down in value. So yeah, it's not really a buyer's market right now. So I decided to stick with Lumix, you know? This is a crop sensor camera, similar to Fujifilm APS-C size cameras. It's a little bit smaller than APS-C, marginally so, but a little bit smaller. And what that does is it allows it to be a very small form factor. So actually, if I compare this to my Rollei 35, they're actually really close. It's a little wider. It's almost the same form factor as a Rollei 35, which is a very small camera. And with a strap on it, I can hang it from my shoulder and bring it with me everywhere I go, and it's so lightweight and small, I forget it's there. And yeah, so I've been taking it with me basically everywhere, doing a lot of street photography over the last month plus that I've had it, and now I feel like I've owned it long enough that I can do a little review on it. And I think what I want your takeaway to be on this video isn't necessarily that you need to go out and get yourself this exact camera, but moreover, it's like, I just want to get across the point that you don't need the brand new camera that just came out this year in order to take really amazing photos that still hold up today. That's like the key thing, is you can pick yourself up a 4 or 5-year-old camera, spend half as much as you would have if you bought a new camera today, and you're getting still amazing image quality that still holds up, and just making a couple of sacrifices. And if you're willing to make those couple of sacrifices, your wallet is happy and your creative fulfillment is still there because you're creating beautiful photos. So first I'll talk about some of the sacrifices that I had to make when getting this camera versus a brand new camera, and then I'll get into all my favorite things about it. So some of the sacrifices, the EVF kind of sucks. It's kind of garbage. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I had to kind of tune my brain to not think that what I'm seeing through the viewfinder is actually what the image looks like. So that's my biggest gripe with this camera, but I still can't be angry when I look at the pictures later and they're great. So I just kind of have learned to not really use the EVF much, and the main screen is a lot better. So the other gripe that I have with this camera, which I'm not sure if this is like an industry-wide thing, or just a Panasonic-wide thing, or just for this model, let me know in the comments if you guys have cameras that also do this, but the touchscreen on the back is actually really annoying because there's a function that's like a tap to change where the focus box is. So for autofocus, so when you do the half click of the shutter, or you press the autofocus lock button and it goes to autofocus, it'll autofocus whatever is in that box. And if you accidentally move the box by touching the screen to the edge, then it'll focus on what's on the edge, not what's in the middle of your frame. And you can't disable that feature. The only thing I can do to disable it is to turn off the touchscreen entirely. And I can't set the touchscreen on or off to one of my quick function buttons, which is also really annoying because I totally would have used one of my function buttons for that, to be able to turn the touchscreen on and off. But basically what I've done now is I've just deactivated the touchscreen on my camera, and that's fine for me because I don't really use the touchscreen anyways. But I know that I'm not like all photographers out there, and some of the photographers really love using the touchscreen to navigate all the settings. For me, I can do all that through the thumb pad. I can access my ISO, I can access my white balance, I can hit the quick menu button and access my quick menu and use the D-pad to navigate all of that with the menu set button. So I really don't need the touchscreen, but it's annoying to have to like completely deactivate the touchscreen in order to turn off that feature that I haven't seen anybody in any of the reviews of this camera online say that they like that feature. Everybody talks about how it's like annoying that you can't just turn it off. And for me, when I got the camera, I spent a good hour or two basically turning off every function because the camera just has too much going on. And like I said earlier, I just want to simplify my workflow, you know? I just want it to feel analog. I don't want to be sitting here fiddling with all the settings on my camera when stuff is happening in front of me that I can just be focused on and just taking pictures of. I like to be looking out in the world, not looking down at my camera, and then be able to just lift it up and take a picture, you know? But now to talk about all of my favorite things about the camera. First off is the lens. This is a fixed lens, you can't remove it, but it's a zoom focal length. So it goes from a 24 to 70 millimeter equivalent focal length with the crop sensor. And it is a 1.7 to 2.8 variable aperture. But what I love so much about this lens is it's actually a Leica Summilux. So the glass is really, really nice. It's like having a Leica on your Panasonic. A lot of people don't know this, but Panasonic actually collaborates with Leica a lot. And actually my S1H that I'm filming on right now, it's a native Leica L-mount camera. So that's really nice. The glass is really great. It's very sharp. The slight bit of loss in clarity that you get when the lens is wide open just translates to actually really nice character. It's not a boring characterless lens at all. And you really see that mostly when there's really shallow depth of field, when your subject is very close and you really get that bokeh in the background. The bokeh is very pretty. So I like that about it a lot as well. Also, almost all the time when I'm photographing with this camera, I have a Tiffin Glimmerglass 1 filter that I screw onto the front of the camera. And the Glimmerglass 1 is a really nice diffusion filter. It's probably my favorite diffusion filter of all time. And it just gives you a really nice filmic organic look, especially just in the highlights. And it just softens skin tones. It makes everything really beautiful. So you get this nice Leica glass, but it softens it up and makes it a little bit more organic. So in comparison to this, in comparison to something like the Fuji X-E4 or the X100V, which I think those are like about 24 megapixels, this is a 17 megapixel sensor. So it's lower megapixel, so that's one of the sacrifices you're making. But I don't feel like I'm making a sacrifice at all because 17 megapixels is still a shit ton. It blows up really, really large. If you're doing anything besides billboards, 17 megapixels is plenty. So ask yourself if you really need more than 17 megapixels when you're picking up a camera. And if you're shooting billboards, you probably wouldn't be looking at a camera like this anyways. You can probably afford a Leica and shoot it. Shoot in 40 megapixels. Like, have fun. Spend $10,000 on your still camera. I'm kidding. I would love a Leica. Leica, if you're watching this, send me your cameras. I'll do reviews of them. But yeah, so I don't feel like I'm making a sacrifice there at all. And the quality of the raw files that come out of this are amazing. I don't feel like I'm sacrificing anything with the raw. I don't shoot in JPEG, even though the JPEG images of the Mark II, which is what this one is, the Mark I JPEG quality is kind of garbage. So don't get the Mark I because of that reason. The Mark II JPEGs are a lot more improved. But I don't even shoot JPEGs on this camera. I only shoot raw because I really like that dynamic range. I really like the ability to adjust the image in post and to have that flexibility with the color and the light and the shadows. But my workflow for this is I shoot only in RAW, and then I have one of my quick function buttons on the back, function button 3, When I press that, that brings up the Wi-Fi functionality, which allows me to basically like instantly transfer any of the photos I select right onto my phone in a matter of like 60 seconds. And then I use the VSCO app in my phone to edit all those raw images. And in VSCO, I like to use some of the more prominent film simulation LUTs. So I use the Fujifilm Provia LUT a lot, the FP4. And I use some of the Kodak LUTs as well. And usually I'll just apply the LUT, adjust the light a little bit, and good to go. It's kind of similar to what the Fuji guys are doing, but just shooting in RAW instead. And it's nice that the raw file types coming out of this camera are compatible with the VSCO app and with my phone in general, so I can edit it right on my phone. Don't even need to put the photos into my computer if I don't want to, which is pretty cool. The only thing I feel like I'm really sacrificing between this camera and the full frame S1H that I'm shooting on now, which is my main workhorse camera, is just the difference between a crop sensor versus a full frame, the literal optical difference of having shallower depth of field. But when you're out and about doing street photography, you're not necessarily trying to get super razor thin depth of field. Otherwise, most of your photos would just be out of focus because you would just miss focus because things are passing and moving and it's all very fast and in the moment. So when I'm doing street photography, I'm not really even trying to get shallow depth of field anyway. Even the photos that I've done on my full frame S1H, most of those street photography photos are also deep depth of field photos anyway. So I'm usually shooting at an f8 or a 5.6 with an ND filter on there to stop it down even more. I'm very rarely at a 2.8 or a 2 or a 1.7 doing street photography photos. Maybe you guys, maybe some of you out there do prefer that, but for me, that's not a huge deal. So that's the one big difference I noticed between this crop sensor camera and my S1H. Besides that, the S1H, the big difference I feel when I'm using that versus this is just how much better the EVF and the screen are in general. This gives me all of the same feeling. It's the same Panasonic menu system that I'm familiar with, but in just a really small form factor that allows me to bring it everywhere. And you know, they say the best camera is the one you have on you, but the moral of the story here with this video is that you don't need the latest and greatest cameras in order to create really beautiful images. All right, so this is Brendan from the future here, realizing in the edit that there's a lot more that I actually still want to talk about. So first, I just want to kind of walk through some of the other features of the camera that I really like. So first off, starting at the lens, I talked about the fact that it's a Summilux and the optical quality is great. There's a couple of other really cool things on the lens, actually like physical things that I like about it. So first off, there's 2 switches on the actual lens, physical switches. I always love physical switches, physical knobs, dials, whatever, instead of just having to use the menus inside the camera. It makes it so much more fast and convenient. And for dedicated things that you use often, it's really great to be able to access that stuff really quickly. So one of those things is a manual focus switch or autofocus switch on the side. You can switch from normal autofocus, macro autofocus, or manual focus, and that's really nice. In terms of the autofocus, it's really, really good on this camera, and the camera also has an autofocus or auto exposure lock button on the back, right where your thumb is, so that's a switch I really love. Also, a very unique switch that this camera has that not many other cameras do is on the top. It has an aspect ratio switch, which is really, really cool. So the 1:1 setting or the 4:3 setting, the more square settings, actually use more vertical space of the sensor. So that's really cool to have. It's just kind of like, for me, I see it as something that enhances my creativity in the moment. I can just switch it to 1:1 or 4:3 if I want something a little bit of a different composition for a specific shot that I'm going for. Another really big plus about this camera is how many programmable function buttons there are. There are 5 different programmable function buttons, 4 on the back, 1 on the top right here. And then if you want to activate it, if you're still using the touchscreen, then there's 4 more soft keys that are programmable on the back as well. So that's like 9 total different function buttons you can use to quickly access stuff. And the rest of the ergonomics of the camera are also really nice. So it has a little bit of a groove here on the front, which is rubberized. It creates a really nice grip, and also a thumb groove on the back where you tend to rest your thumb right next to the focus lock button. So into the actual functionality of the camera, so some things that I really love. First off, there's a really cool function with the zoom lens that you can actually set the camera to remember the focal length that whatever you're set to. When you power the camera off and power it back on, it automatically goes back to that focal length. So if there's certain focal lengths that you prefer to use, for me it's about 40 millimeters, I can set it to 40 millimeters, treat it kind of like a prime lens, and then when I turn the camera off and turn it back on, I don't have to find 40 millimeters again using the little zoom knob. It'll just automatically go there. So that's really nice. So you have the ability to change your focal length when you want, but you can still treat the camera like a prime lens camera. And one little quick tip that I actually wanted to mention, that many of you probably already use this tip with any other camera that you use, but what I do is I set the brightness on the back monitor to max, so I put it all the way as bright as it can go. But then I make sure to keep on the eye sensor for the viewfinder, so that way when the viewfinder is covered, the main screen turns off, it goes black. So it's a little battery saving technique. When you have the camera around your shoulder and it's hanging on your side, the viewfinder is covered and then the screen goes black. So you don't have to turn the camera off, but it's still saving a little bit more power while it's just hanging on your side while you're out and about. So I think for me, like, my favorite things about what draw me to this camera are that I'm not actually sacrificing image quality, but I still get that small portable form factor, great ergonomics, and then all of the manual dials that still make it feel like an analog camera. And it just makes the camera that much easier to bring along with me on a day-to-day basis, because I don't have to bring a camera bag. I don't have to bring any accessories, just one battery with one memory card in here. As long as the battery's charged, it's good to go for a whole day, and I'm not making any real sacrifices. So is this a Fuji X100V killer? Maybe, maybe not. Is it a good replacement for that camera? Are you still gonna get awesome pictures and really enjoy your experience using a camera like this? Most definitely 100%. So keep that in mind when you're camera shopping. If you enjoyed this video, let me know and I'll keep doing more videos like this, and be sure to subscribe, obviously. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.